All right, we're rolling here with another episode of the Meat Mafia podcast today, joined by Fawn BowTied. Fawn is a specialist in holistic health, specifically skincare. We're very excited to dive in on this topic. So Fawn, welcome to the Meat Mafia podcast.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited.
It's going to be a good one.
We're pumped. This is your first podcast too, right, Fawn?
Yeah, I think I may have been interviewed maybe 5-10 years ago somehow, but not as fun. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, we're excited to have you on. And we were saying this before we hit the record button. Like traditionally with our podcast, we focus very heavily on diet and lifestyle. And one of the things that you were mentioning is how, your skin and your appearance is really a reflection of what your internal health looks like. So I know you have an amazing Substack where you dig into all things skincare. I was having some issues with acne that resulted from medication that I was on from ulcerative colitis. Your approach really helped me clear that up a lot. So number one, thank you for doing that because that was huge. But one of the things that you mentioned that we were DMing about is that you actually have your own story healing Crohn's, which is like the sister disease of ulcerative colitis, through diet and lifestyle. So if you wouldn't mind, I think we'd love to learn a little bit more about, your journey with Crohn's and how you were able to cure some of those incurable autoimmune diseases.
Yeah, absolutely. So great way to kick it off because Crohn's was probably my first introduction to really taking agency over my health.
Mm-hmm.
I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease way back. I want to say almost 8 years ago by now. And I spent years heading through the medical system. Thankfully, I have a very strong mother. She really tried to push for these doctors to not just treat my symptoms, but try to find the root cause. She's an amazing woman, but I really did not get the care that I needed for years. And so even when I was like 18, I remember being on 10 pills a day. There was a time I got the flu and my roommate in college used a knife and would cut my pills up so I could take them because my throat was so swollen.
Wow.
So yeah, it just wasn't a good way to live. And thankfully, I actually kind of found this side of Twitter in 2017. So I've been orbiting fitness Twitter, money Twitter before they were even really fitness Twitter and money Twitter. And that really taught me about the importance of nutrition when I wasn't taught about that growing up. And I was actually a vegetarian for a long time. So what a lot of people don't know is that some of the stuff that our vegetables are sprayed with, like glyphosate, can be very irritating to the stomach, even just a lot of fiber in general. And that was something I was never taught. So in 2018, I overhauled my diet. I dropped out all the vegetables. I started eating meat again. And it was like a flick of the switch. Within a year, I was in remission. I was losing weight. I felt incredible. And it honestly gave me my life back. When people say meat heals, I agree 100%. It really did change my life and I couldn't be happier.
Wow.
Well, Fawn, what were some of the things that you felt like were different about your lifestyle before when you were dealing with some of the issues with Crohn's versus after that you really pinpointed and changed? You mentioned eating more meat, but maybe a picture of what your lifestyle looked like a bit before.
Yeah, for sure. So I got lucky. I got introduced to the gym when I was in high school. So I've always been into fitness. And so I was living an active lifestyle, but I didn't have a diet that was conducive to that. So unfortunately, I dealt with some extreme fatigue. Like I would come home from high school and I would nap for 4 hours. I would get up to do my homework for 2 hours and I would go right back to sleep. And consistently across blood panels, I was getting low B12, low vitamin D, low RBC, all these classic things that then an endocrinologist would just put me on medication on. But what they don't tell you is that those vitamins have such low bioavailability compared to food. And I will say my mom was pushing me forever to start eating meat again. And I pushed back like angsty teenagers do, but in the end, she was right. So I was able to get all of that medication. And now I've done a full 180. Like I have 16 hours of energy every day. I don't even need a cup of coffee every day.
Wow. That's incredible. And are you off all medication that you were on for Crohn's, Fawn?
Yeah, totally. I do still supplement with some vitamin D. I take a B complex and some zinc, but that's just standard over-the-counter vitamins.
That's amazing.
It's interesting too, because I know Brett Brett was dealing with a similar autoimmune condition, and that manifested itself in his skin breaking out. I myself took Accutane to cure a cystic acne, which was 100% diet related. Like I detailed out once in a thread, just like what I was eating at lunch in high school. And like people who knew me knew that I was constantly in the gym. But if you looked at what I was eating, you would be like, this person should be extremely unhealthy. But it was just the counterbalance was me just being very active. And it took me years to realize, and I'm assuming this is very similar to what you guys experienced, it takes you years to realize that the key is really all in the nutrition and what you're putting in your body. And so like, I wish I had found, before I even tried Accutane, this side of Twitter where you're asked or you're questioned to experiment a bit more with your diet before you start taking these pills.
Yeah, for sure. We have such a barbaric way of looking at the body through Western medicine, where we see our gut as completely separate from everything else, right? But it's a system. Everything is intertwined. So inflammation in your gut will eventually show up on your face. And that's why I say your skin is like a lie detector.
Mm-hmm.
I love that piece because I think it's so true. Your skin is just, it's like the first thing, like when your gut is flared up, I think your skin is probably one of the first things, or maybe it's like one of the last things to react, but it's a sign that something's wrong, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Fawn, did you notice like very visible improvements in your own quality of your skin when you started switching to more of this animal-based diet and lifestyle?
Actually, I had the opposite experience, interestingly. Growing up, I always had beautiful skin, even skin tone. Granted, I was anemic for a large part of my childhood, so I do have some like lighter patches on my face even today. Like other people can't notice them, but I could notice them if I looked in the mirror. I don't think that'll ever really go away. But it actually was when I started eating meat and I started exercising even more that's when my skin kind of got pretty bad. I kind of attribute it to a few things. Like I don't tolerate whey that well, but I'm still going to take whey on a cut. It is what it is. And I have to balance what I want aesthetically with what I want holistically for my health. But I will say for a lot of people, they do see differences in their skin, like when they cut out alcohol or sugar or even just like very greasy foods in the diet, like that might come out in the form of excess sebum production. So everybody is different.
I don't know.
Oh, go ahead, Brett.
No, I was going to say, I don't know if this is just anecdotal, but I do notice that when I eat like fattier cuts of meat with a higher saturated fat content, my skin tends to clear up. And I don't know if that's just anecdotal or if you have an explanation behind that, but that's just something that I've seen with myself.
I really don't have an answer for you off the top of my head. The first thing I think of is, are these fatty cuts of meat you're eating higher in vitamin A? Because vitamin A is just retinol, essentially. When I talk about retinoids a lot on the timeline, that's a topical form of vitamin A derivative, but you get plenty of vitamin A through liver, which actually, as I'm talking, I realize is not a fatty cut of meat, but that's where my
but it's very mineral rich, right? And I think that you mentioned anemia. It's really a product of I think what a lot of people tend not to realize, and I think medical experts don't realize, is that anemia is kind of a product of iron overload and not having these other key minerals there to fix that. And you mentioned retinol, and you also mentioned beef liver. Are those kind of staples of how you're fueling yourself these days? Is liver a key component of what you're eating?
I hate to say it, but no, I do not consume any liver. I can't get myself to cook it. And maybe I should be eating it raw, like the Anons on Twitter. Maybe I should try it. But I do use a topical retinoid on my face.
Yeah, and Fawn, one of the other things you mentioned, you said like some common irritants could be, whey, alcohol, sugar. Are there any other foods or things that you find that your clients will cut out that may have positive effects on their overall skin health?
Those are the three big ones. Even some people are just allergic to certain things. Like I had someone tell me that back in the day, they had the worst cystic acne I've ever seen. They sent me pictures, and it wasn't even cutting out whey that did it. It was specifically whey that had maltodextrin in it. Their body just could not tolerate maltodextrin. So it could be any number of things, but usually I do see it come down to alcohol, sugar, a diet high in just like processed foods. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good segue into some of the stuff that you're doing for some of your clients too, Fawn. So when you're kind of prescribing a skincare routine, what sort of things are you trying to add in? Because obviously you can eliminate some of these things, but are there things that people don't typically think of to add in?
Yeah, this is a good question. So I do always talk about diet and lifestyle because even the little things, like for example, I'm one of the girls that wears the big headphones in the gym. So I always trap sweat on the sides of my face. And so that's where I break out. So I have to use a benzoyl peroxide cleanser after the gym just to clear up that part of my face. I'm not going to stop wearing those headphones. I like them. So that's the choice that I make. So we talk about little things like that, but I think people see skincare as this like very fancy habit when it's really just basic hygiene. So I even wrote a free guide. I tongue in cheek call it my magnum opus, 3 basic steps to skincare. You only really need to do 3 things, which is 1, wash your face, use a cleanser, moisturize. So when you strip your face of the excess sebum to make sure you're replenishing your skin with lipids. And 3, if you're open to it, facial SPF.
The last one's an interesting one because there's this whole new movement about like no sunscreen. Have you gone down that rabbit hole yet?
Oh, for sure. At least in my own research, I have yet to do my deep dive on my Substack, but yes, I'm really glad you brought this up because I've been wanting to talk about this. So when I was preparing for this, I was putting together like common skincare myths, and a big one that I was thinking of was people see sunscreen as this big all or nothing issue. People saw that sensationalized headline like 2 years ago, 71 sunscreens found with benzenes, and they just went crazy with it. But people didn't realize is that that was the manufacturing error, and benzenes have never been in any SPF formulation ever. And that's not to say I don't understand why people are uncomfortable with SPF. I'm just saying people see headlines like that, and because they already have a negative view of skincare, they run with it as confirmation bias instead of thinking critically about the issue. But for example, 90% of these people that make these bait tweets for engagement couldn't explain to me the difference between mineral and chemical SPF, or couldn't discuss with me the cumulative issues relating to UVA exposure in isolation over time. So my point being, sunscreen isn't a black and white issue. I wear facial SPF every day because I do spend a lot of time indoors in front of my laptop. I'm getting UVA in isolation, so I'm not getting those protective benefits of UVA plus UVB, or priming my skin from sunrise to sunset with infrared, right? I will say that while I wear it every day, I understand that not everybody feels comfortable wearing it. But on the other hand, I do wear it when I want to avoid getting burned, and I get blood panels done regularly to sanity check my vitamin D. I bet that like 90% of the people fear-mongering about SPF couldn't tell you the last time they had a blood panel done. And if it was that important to them, they would be getting it measured regularly. And I actually implore people to do that because it's vital to our health. So I guess in sum, holistic health requires critical thinking, and everyone should be managing their own individual risk.
Got it.
That blood panel point is a really important point. Is there one that you would recommend? Because I do think that a lot of people probably avoid doing that, even people who are on Twitter talking about certain health topics. Is there one that you recommend people to kind of regularly get and kind of monitor over time?
Yeah. So I'm a big quantitative person. Anyone who follows me on Twitter knows I'm all about numbers, and I believe that that which can be measured can be improved. So I like to get my blood checked. Usually it's vitamin D. I get my thyroid done. My testosterone, trying to think, RBC, iron, just a general panel of things because I do have that history of anemia. And so actually, little fun anecdote for you guys. It had been a while since I got a blood panel done, but because I've spent so many years trying to get in tune with my body and my hormonal patterns, I was actually able to catch and mitigate an iron issue that I had. I think it was last September, October. I was feeling horrible, so burnt out. I didn't have energy anymore, started needing 2 cups of coffee a day. And it wasn't until I realized like, oh, I've gone through 3 menstrual cycles and I haven't had any beef because I had been on the road for so long. And I ate high beef like every single day for 7 days, and just like that, cured.
Wow. It's actually, it's funny that you talk about that. When I had my big flare up, when I first got diagnosed with colitis in 2016, my iron levels were extremely low. And since I've switched to that animal-based lifestyle, I've never had an issue at all. But to your point, I probably haven't got my blood work. I don't think I've got my panels in about a year. So that's like, there's really no excuse for it. It's just been like, oh, I need to just find a place to do it. And now there's so many different options online that can get it done. So my commitment after this podcast is that Clemens and I will both get our blood work taken. Going to volunteer you too.
Done.
Okay, good.
Yeah. The SPF is really interesting though, because I think it's a really important nuance where what you're saying is it's like, it's not the SPF, it's the preparation method. Because I remember when my skin started getting really sensitive because of the colitis medication I was taking, when I would just use like conventional sunscreen, my back, which is very sensitive, would just break out. It would almost like chronically flare up. Mm-hmm. And then my friend, she was like kind of holistically making some of her own sunscreen with like zinc, cacao, a few other things, and just putting that on, like it almost felt nourishing on the skin. It didn't make me break out. I was still able to tan. I wasn't sunburning. It was like it was productive. So that was the first time that I realized it's like, it's not the sunscreen or the SPF that's inherently bad. It's just the way that it's consumed. And that is a very important nuance. Like you mentioned, is that there are a lot of holistic health practitioners that say, oh, you don't need sunscreen at all. But it sounds like from your perspective, it's like, no, facial SPF is a good thing. It's just the preparation method that matters, right?
Yeah, for sure. And you bring up a great point. So the comment about zinc oxides, you'll see on the timeline again, every time I harp about SPF, I talk about how I prefer mineral-based sunscreens to chemical-based sunscreens. And when we talk about that, we're talking about the difference in UV filters. So chemical-based sunscreens usually have homosalate or oxybenzone, avobenzone, and I'm a little bearish on the stability of these benzene derivatives, because if you look at their exposure, look at the way they degrade from UV exposure over time, they really do start to degrade in about 2 hours. And I'm also just kind of sketched out on the idea of benzene derivatives, but mineral-based sunscreens are made with zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, which I'm more comfortable putting on my skin. They don't sting my eyes, and generally I find that people seem to tolerate them better. The only issue with it is they do sometimes leave a white cast. So for people that are more tan, they might want to opt for a tinted version. But overall, I think the distinction should be more clear to people, because you can't really paint these things with a broad brush. They're not the same.
That's really interesting. And is the industry as a whole, like some of the more readily available sunscreens, would you steer clear of those, or would you do you have any sunscreens that you recommend, whether it's like on your website or just like off the top of your head, ones that come to mind that are good for people to kind of dig into?
Yeah, for sure. So again, I prefer to avoid sunscreens that have the UV filters with benzene derivatives, so avobenzone or oxybenzone. So what I look for in a sunscreen is SPF 30 plus, broad spectrum, mineral based. So if you look on the back, the active ingredients would be zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. And I think the one that I really like is this Elta MD sunscreen, which is a little bit more expensive, but they do make drugstore ones. If it says mineral or physical SPF on the bottle, I will like it.
Okay.
Fawn, are there any like red alarm ingredients that if you see on a bottle, it's like just no go, put it down, do not buy?
Oh, this is a good question. I should have prepared for this. Usually it's not so much the ingredient itself as it is the concentration that it's in the product. So one of these is very similar to how people kind of run with the sensationalized headlines, 71 sunscreens found with benzenes. People will often run with like, XYZ concentration of this product found in the bloodstream. Well, okay, but what is the concentration of that ingredient in the formulas we're putting on our body? Because as always, the dose makes the poison. Like, even water can kill you in excess, Right. Off the top of my head, some of the ones people I think are definitely uncomfortable with would be parabens as endocrine disruptors. Personally, I'm familiar with the data. I'm not really convinced, but I totally understand why some people would be uncomfortable. So the product line that I really like that's paraben free is Vanicream. It's also like $8 to $10 at the drugstore. It's super cheap and affordable.
Mm.
And CeraVe tends to make good products. I think the moisturizer I use from them is also paraben free.
Fawn, have you ever experimented with any tallow-based products or any animal-based skincare products? We had Charles Mayfield on, who he recently launched a company called Pharaoh Skincare, which is, his product is based around tallow and pig lard, and we've been using it and loving it. So I'm curious to get your take on it.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys like it, that's awesome. Tallow would be a good source of lipids, right? So all oils and fats can just be distilled down to their fatty acid composition. So tallow is mostly stearic acid, right? So that's omega-9. For example, coconut oil is mostly lauric acid. Yeah, those are the two big ones off the top of my head people use a lot. I tend to steer clear of those just because I do tend to be acne prone. And so those heavier saturated fats, which stearic acid and lauric acid are both saturated fats, are going to be more comedogenic. So for people that can tolerate them, I think it can be great. But for people that do tend to be more acne prone, I think they should probably steer more towards unsaturated fats. And a good rule of thumb for that is if it is solid at room temperature, it's going to be a saturated fat. And if it's liquid at room temperature, it is an unsaturated fat. The reason has to do with the way the carbon chains in the triglycerides that make up the fatty acids are going to layer on top of each other.
Interesting.
Got it. So, and by acne prone, do you also mean like maybe just someone that has like oilier skin could struggle with like tallow or lard or coconut oil or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. So I never recommend coconut oil. It is super comedogenic. I've cleared up so many cases of acne just by telling people to stop using coconut oil on their face.
Wow.
So probably your body could handle it, but your face and your back have such a high density of sebaceous glands that you already are producing so much sebum. Coconut oil is going to clog, make it worse. Off the top of my head, I want to say tallow is not nearly as comedogenic as coconut oil, so I'd be more likely to recommend that. I think it could be good for someone with dry skin.
Fawn, are there any other of these holistic health topics that you nerd out on that you get excited about or are getting more excited about?
Ooh, oh my gosh. I think I've been really interested in learning more about my light environment because I have such an interest just in ultraviolet light, obviously, being into skin, learning more about infrared and the way we can actually use light to kill pimples in isolation. There is some research that shows even blue light, if you just apply a blue light to a pimple, it can kind of kill off the bacteria.
Interesting.
Yeah. And man, other holistic health things. I'm going to be honest, a lot of the skin takes I see on Twitter are just trash. Like I constantly people saying eat carrots for good skin. Beta carotene is only converted to vitamin A by the body on an as needed basis. So if carrots are making your skin look really good, you're probably vitamin A deficient.
That's interesting. That's what I think. That's what we both love about your account too, is it's like, I mean, the majority of the holistic health stuff and the accounts are amazing. But I think that is one of the dangers with social media, like you mentioned, is like you can throw out memes or like just kind of cherry pick clips that get you views or something like that. And then people are just blanket like, oh, I don't need sunscreen, or, oh, I could just put coconut oil on my skin and it works. And you're like, no, this is actually the science behind what you're doing.
Right, exactly. And to that point, there is something to be said for managing individual risk. If someone likes tallow, I'm not going to tell them to stop using tallow. If it's happening to break them out, then I'll suggest they switch to something else. But there is a way to manage all of this. It's not a black or white issue. And actually, you bring up a great point. I had written this down. Talking about this trend of natural skincare when I was thinking about common skincare mistakes. Potentially, depending on what you're predisposed to, some of the natural stuff you're using can potentially be doing more harm than good. So outside the idea of using coconut oil, another example I came up with was I've actually cleared up a few cases of fungal acne just by telling my clients to stop using olive oil as a moisturizer or using some of these all natural moisturizers made with olive oil, because fungal acne it's kind of a misnomer. It's not actually acne. It's really caused by the proliferation of a yeast called Malassezia. It's the same thing that causes dandruff. So if you're putting that on your face, it might exacerbate a problem you already have on your head, bring it down to your face, down to your chest. And so for some people, they might be able to tolerate it. For other people, it doesn't work. by individuality.
Yeah, that's great. And how we, Fawn, initially came across you, we've had Alex Feinberg on the podcast, awesome guest, awesome guy. I saw that remarkable transformation that he had, clearing up his, like, I think he had like a years long battle with just like never being able to really heal the back acne that he had. And then I think with your regimen, I think you posted an update. It's pretty much all virtually gone within like 6 months of working with you, correct?
Yeah. So Alex is a good friend. I love him to pieces. When he first posted that, it was actually something like he's dealt with cystic acne for 17 years, and it was so bad. His mom used to ask him if he had AIDS, which was just the funniest caption. But yeah, so Alex, he eats super clean. For all these seed oil replier guys, these office seed oils, that wasn't causing his cystic acne. He's just prone to enlarged sebaceous glands, and that's just the luck of the draw. All we did was use some benzoyl peroxide. I got him on some AHA lotion, and right now I'm having him use lactic acid as well to clear some of that hyperpigmentation. But if you compare the before and the after, he's like a whole new man, and that's the power of skincare.
You mentioned the seed oils. Is that something that you're focused on in terms of getting that out of people's diets when they come to you for help?
Yes and no. So the seed oil issue can definitely cause inflammation in people that don't have optimized diets. I think I've looked at some of the research. Actually, BowTied Ox put me onto some of this research that was really more about the ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s as opposed to the presence of any omega-6s. So yes, if someone is generally inflamed, of course, it's going to show up on their skin. But also, I'm going to go have a popsicle later. That's probably got seed oils in it. It is what it is. But on the other hand, people often bring up seed oils in the context of skincare. Well, omega-6s, like lipids, are integral to your skin barrier. So if you've got oil that you're putting on your face, that's very different than consuming it, right? The ingestion, the inflammation that comes from the ingestion is going to be very different from topical application. So there's always these bits and pieces of nuance here.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that there's definitely more to all of these topics than some of these headline clickbait accounts like to kind of lead on. I'm sure we've probably fallen in that category at one point or another, but it definitely is something that, someone like yourself who's dealing with actually turning a lot of these cases around is probably dealing with much more closely and intimately on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, totally. And I'm going to be honest, I get it. I'm trying to grow my Twitter account too. So when I see these bad takes, I know they're being posted for engagement, especially like they're coming from Hype Fury, whatever. Like, I don't even bother. Like, do you?
Yeah. Are there any, I know this might be a tough question to answer, but are there any like readily available skincare brands that you could get at like a local store that you will recommend to clients, whether it's like soaps or, skincare products, just anything that you typically like or gravitate towards?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a self-proclaimed hater. You'll never get any sort of corporate loyalty out of me, which is making it very hard for me to think about, doing affiliate marketing or getting sponsored with brands, but I'll figure that out.
Yeah.
That being said, I am all about affordable skincare. This stuff does not need to be expensive at baseline. Some of my favorite brands are Vanny Cream or CeraVe. You can get those at any drugstore or grocery store. I also like Good Molecules in the Ordinary for more targeted, high-level serums. These are all super affordable brands. Like my cleanser, I think, is $12 and has lasted me over 6 months.
Wow. How important is like stress management in this whole picture, like getting good sleep and trying to reduce stress that's coming from day-to-day lifestyle stuff?
Yeah, this is a great question. I wrote a thread about sleep and skincare a few months ago. I might have to retweet it. But essentially, sebum production is yoked to a few things, one being androgens, which is why men tend to be oilier than women, but also cortisol levels. So if you're really stressed out, that's definitely going to make your skin worse because you're just producing more oil, especially if you're not taking care of yourself by washing your face. If you're not sleeping well, that's going to up your cortisol, so you're going to break out. Lots of different things like that. And even if you're not even getting pimples, you might be getting blotchiness. So lowering cortisol is essential to your holistic health and definitely for your skin.
Love it. How about, have you noticed anything just about like quality of sleep and sleep deprivation?
I will say, I feel like my face looks more just saggy when I'm not getting a full night's sleep. And I'm one of those people that I need 9 hours of sleep every night to function like a normal
Yeah.
human being. Um, I know some people are just chronically not getting their sleep in, and I do what I can to help. Something I often recommend is like a caffeine serum. If you're
Mm.
chronically dealing with under eye bags, you're not getting your sleep in, you want a topical option, caffeine can be great. It's a vasodilator, so it's going to reduce blood flow. It's going to kind of stop that purple look, especially if you put it on, like if you keep it in the fridge and put it on in the morning, that cold is going to kind of reduce those eye bags.
Yeah. This is probably, I don't know, this is probably an extremely basic question or a dumb question, but how can you identify like what type of skin you actually have?
Oh, good question. And also, I just want to clarify, I think I just said caffeine is a vasodilator. I meant to say it is a vasoconstrictor.
Vasoconstrictor. Got it.
Yeah. As for skin type, yes, so I have a test in my Substack, but essentially super easy. If you just go wash your face with water, let it air dry and sit for 10 minutes, that will tell you what type of skin you have. So for example, if I did that, my face would be so dry and so itchy. It's been like that my whole life, even before I started like doing my skincare. Like I remember being a kid and getting like flaky skin and not realizing it. I never had pimples or anything until a few years ago, but that was an example. I've just always had dry skin. If you have oily skin, you're going to be probably kind of shiny if you look in the mirror after those 10 minutes. If you have combination skin, you might be oily just in your T-zone. So that's the sebaceous glands across your forehead and your nose. It'll also make you prone to blackheads. And if you have normal skin, you'll feel okay.
How about like treating dandruff or eczema, things like that? Is that something that you have helped people figure out?
Yes, sir. Actually, I cleared up Alex Feinberg's dandruff.
Really?
Super easy once you realize that it's not just a dry scalp every time. It's often caused by the proliferation of a yeast called Malassezia. You just need ingredients that are antifungal. So pyrithione zinc is great. I think Head and Shoulders, the active ingredient is pyrithione zinc. Nizoral shampoo, the active ingredient is ketoconazole. That's great. Occasionally, I think sulfur, tar, or salicylic acid could also be used, but the main ones would be pyrithione zinc and ketoconazole.
One of the other things that I was curious about, there's this big topic now that like deodorants have all these chemicals in it. Is that something that you focus on too, just given that it's a skincare product?
I have not previously, but this is a good idea. And when I do, I will tag you guys.
Okay.
I do know I've seen the research on the aluminum issue, and I am not convinced that aluminum in deodorant is a big problem or antiperspirant is a problem. But no, I haven't done my due diligence. So thank you.
It's an interesting topic because it's one that gets thrown out there a bunch. And I also have not done my due diligence about it, but I get asked about it a bunch. Like, what deodorant do you use? When Brett and I talk about this all the time, like whenever we use the all natural ones, we end up smelling like a pig. So
yep.
Literally,
we really don't have too many options.
Yeah. Again, I'm not really convinced about the aluminum issue. I think I just use whatever I got off of like Amazon or at the grocery store, but let me do some research. I'll get back to you.
Yeah, we'll have to save that for a part 2. Fawn, something I'm interested in, there's been this massive like resurgence of like red light therapy the last couple of years, and people just talking about how it can help you from a testosterone perspective and also skin health too. Do you feel a particular way about the red light? Have you tried it yourself? Have you noticed any benefits from it? Just curious.
So I haven't tried it myself, and this is one of those topics that I got from holistic Twitter that I think is so interesting. So infrared light, I think not even for skin health, but also for hair growth, which is why I'm thinking about it, because in the wake of COVID, you're seeing a lot of people that are experiencing telogen effluvium or alopecia areata, so they're losing their hair, and red light therapy could be a treatment option other than your standard like minoxidil or whatever. While I haven't experienced it myself, this is something I have like a bunch of notes on I want to learn more about. And I talked to Grimhood a little bit about this. From his research, what I'm seeing is that sunrise and sunset infrared light is present, and that's what primes you to take on the UV light that is more present in the middle of the day. Grim Hood is great. If you guys don't follow him, you should. Learned a lot from him.
We're both blocked, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
He loves to just block people. For whatever reason, we fell into the block category. I think because we were probably promoting an animal-based diet, and I think that triggers him for some reason. But I know a lot of people are fans of his work, but we are blocked, unfortunately.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Let me do my research on infrared therapy, and again, I'll do some deep dives.
It's interesting. So you mentioned the COVID connection with some like alopecia. Is that what you said?
Really, it's the telogen effluvium, which is an interruption to the hair cycle. So you'll see people experiencing this diffuse shedding of the hair across the head.
Is that related to like actually getting the COVID virus?
It's actually related to the fever. It's a reaction to the inflammation in your body that when it's trying to kill off the virus.
And have you found that it comes, like your hair growth comes back naturally, or like in your research, or is it something that needs to be proactively kind of worked on?
Yeah, so telogen effluvium is a temporary interruption to the hair cycle. So theoretically, the hair should come back. People might just experience some thinner hair for a year while it's growing back in. But something people could look at as an option is just the topical application of minoxidil, which is a generic Rogaine, if they're concerned about that.
Very interesting.
I love it. Fawn, any particular opinion on just like dry sauna usage or anything like that for skin health?
Oh, I love the sauna. I think of it often like just running, like that's great for your endothelial health, like getting blood flow to the skin. I think any activity you do that gets your blood pumping is going to be good for holistic health. I have a post in my Substack about this, but while it's really great for some things, it's not so great for others. One of those being, if you can understand how a dryer, when you put your clothes from the washing machine into the dryer, how it uses heat to dry out your clothes, you can also understand how a dry sauna could be drying out your skin. So something I always recommend for people to do is just rinse your face off before you get in. So you're getting the bacteria off your face. Enjoy your time in the sauna. It's really great. Make sure you're hydrating. When you get out, make sure you wash your face, wash your body again, and then moisturize afterwards, because that dehydration consistently is going to lead to the premature formation of wrinkles. You can mitigate a lot of that and still get the benefits of sauna by just moisturizing afterwards.
Fawn, where do you fall on the Botox argument, or Botox in general?
Oh, this is a good question. Okay, so a little bit about me. Man, I love aesthetics. Okay, so let me give some background. Always love skin. I have a background in biochemistry, and I've always been a skeptical person about medicine by nature. I'm also a meathead, a lady meathead. I started lifting pretty early in high school, and I've always had an eye for aesthetics and an appreciation for beauty that appears natural but really isn't. So I don't like Botox because I think it's done really badly often. And I think women get it so young before they even need it. Like now there's this trend of preventative Botox, which I really think is just a marketing scam to get women in their 20s using it.
Totally.
There are even topical substitutes. Like I'm looking at some different peptides right now. I just did a thread on arginine, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's essentially a topical mimetic of Botox, which should impede the contraction of your facial muscles. That being said, by the time you get into your late 30s, into your 40s, you're going to start seeing formation of wrinkles that even like tretinoin is not going to be able to stop that. So I can see it if it's done really well. I think it can be great. I just think people should not be, well, people can do whatever they want, but in my opinion, I don't think it looks great because it makes them look unnatural.
And one of the things, so I'm interested for our lady viewers out there, makeup is obviously something that people are, using daily. Is that something that you try to like steer clear of, or what's sort of your recommendation for that?
Oh, I love this prompt. Okay, so
that's a softball question if you've ever seen one.
Thank you. So, and I like living my life such that I put in minimal work and get really great results, right? I actually got that from Alex Feinberg. So I lift so that every day I wake up and I can feel comfortable in my body, right? In the same vein, I'm not a fan of makeup because it just feels like a lot of work for this like temporary gain. You have to take it off at the end of the day, right? And from my perspective, it's so much harder to discern the chemical composition of these products compared to skincare products. Um, in the same way that I'm more of like a 1 to 2 sets to failure type of lifter, I'm also more of a spend 5 minutes every night taking care of your skin, and then you don't need to wear makeup kind of person.
Mm. Yeah.
Are there any makeup brands that you like or recommend that are like minimally processed, like decent ingredients?
I get this question all the time. I should really be more prepared, but I really don't wear it. I wear some eyeliner. I occasionally wear lipstick, which I kind of try to avoid because of the lead issue. A lot of lipsticks contain lead. And yeah, the dose makes the poison, but I haven't done my due diligence to be super comfortable with it. So I think skincare wins every time.
Totally. What ultimately prompted you to start your Substack? Because I feel like you're offering so much value on there. What was the kind of like genesis of that whole situation?
Yeah, well, thank you. Um, again, it was Alex. So Alex got me on Twitter, and I was really just kind of shit posting a whole bunch for like a month. I joined the jungle. So if you're not familiar with BowTied Bull, back in the day, they were Wall Street Playboys, and I've been orbiting the side of Twitter for a while, so I was vaguely familiar with them. But in the last few years, they rebranded to BowTied Bull. They started this community. Almost all of us are Anon. We've got different backgrounds, but we share this common value of sovereignty. And a few of us have picked niches to share information about. So you might be familiar with BowTied Ox or BowTied Sales Guy. They're both great individuals adding value on the timeline every day. I decided to join the jungle just because I shared these values. I didn't really have a lot of people in my everyday life that shared these values. And then I realized like, oh, nobody knows anything about skincare. Maybe I'll like tweet a little bit about it. And then it actually wasn't until I think the end of December 2021, I had been bugging Alex for months to start this back acne protocol I wrote for him like back in September or October. He finally did it and he posted a before and after. And I think I gained like 1,000 followers in 2 days.
Wow.
And then it was just like, okay, the market wants this.
Well, the results speak for themselves. Go ahead, Clemenza.
No, yeah, I was gonna say if people are looking to get started with sort like engaging with your stuff, is Twitter the best place to find you and then kind of get digging into your Substack?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm on Twitter, of course, as BowTied Fawn. I just started a TikTok. It's terrible. Don't follow me yet. I'm working on it. And I'm building a website, but my domain name is in process, whatever. So definitely follow me on Twitter. And I also wrote a free guide that'll get you started. Really, for like 90% of people, all you need is these 3 basic steps to skincare. So that's what I called it. I'll send it to you guys so you have it. And if people just read that, that's basically all they need to know.
Yeah, please do, because we can link to that in the show notes. But yeah, we're excited to watch your account blow up, because we just love finding people that like just give you that real honest perspective. And like you said, it's like, you know, you've had a ton of success with diet and lifestyle, but you're also trying to give people the truth behind skincare, you know, really what's going to give them the best bang for their buck and just help them optimize just so they have great skin and have confidence and all that good stuff. So that's great.
Thank you. Yeah, biohacking is just kind of a really weird niche interest that I think people don't apply to skin. Like, yeah, you're on TRT and that's great, but oh, I can help you mitigate all the back acne that comes from it, or I can teach you how to stop aging by using things like retinoids or vitamin C. So it's a really fun way to put aesthetics and health together. And if you do it properly, you won't be compromising any of your health. And you also won't be spending hundreds of dollars, because all I do is debunk skincare marketing on the timeline.
I love it. And I love your take that skin is this lie detector, because I think that biohackers in general like try to take these narrow alleys to figure out all these different ways to do one certain thing really well. But if you're trying to look at the big picture, maybe just looking at your skin is kind of like the big indicator of whether or not if you're, you know, really healthy or not.
Yeah, for sure.
Perfect. Well, this has been an awesome episode, Fawn. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll link to all that stuff in the show notes. And once you dig into the aluminum and the deodorant and all that good stuff, we'll have to have you back on for a part 2.
I'd love to. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Fawn.